Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Raven's Readings. I will be reading to you from Carry On Jeeves, a collection of short stories written by P.G. Wodehouse in 1925. Jeeves, a valet, and his employer Bertie Wooster were characters in dozens of short stories by Wodehouse. Chapters are a bit long, so I'm doing 2 podcasts for each one. I do readings twice a week. If you subscribe to my Substack newsletter, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. If you enjoyed this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Last episode, Jeeves was hired and Bertie was successful in doing as Florence had requested and grabbing Uncle Willoughby's manuscript. Now he has to destroy it. Chapter 1. Continued. Fellows who know all about that sort of thing, detectives and so on, will tell you that the most difficult thing in the world is to get rid of the body. I remember as a kid having to learn by heart a poem about a bird by the name of Eugene Aram who had the deuce of a job in this respect. All I can recall of the actual poetry is the bit that goes, "Tum-tum, tum-tum, tum-tiddy-tum, I slew him, tum-tum-tum." But I recollect that the poor blighter spent much of his valuable time dumping the corpse into ponds and burying it and what not, only to have it pop out at him again. It was about an hour after I had shoved the parcel into the drawer when I realized that I'd let myself in for just the same sort of thing. Florence had talked in an airy sort of way about destroying the manuscript. But when one came down to it, how the deuce can a chap destroy a great chunky mass of paper in somebody else's house in the middle of summer? I couldn't ask to have a fire in my bedroom with the thermometer in the 80s. And if I didn't burn the thing, how else would I get rid of it? Fellows on the battlefield eat dispatches to keep them from falling into the hands of the enemy, but it would take me a year to eat Uncle Willoughby's recollections. I'm bound to say the problem absolutely baffled me. The only thing seemed to be to leave the parcel in the drawer and hope for the best. I don't know whether you have ever experienced it, but it's a dashed unpleasant thing having a crime on one's conscience. Towards the end of the day, the mere sight of the drawer began to depress me. I found myself getting all on edge, and once when Uncle Willoughby trickled silently into the smoking room when I was alone there and spoke to me before I knew he was there, I broke the record for the sitting high jump. I was wondering all the time when Uncle Willoughby would sit up and take notice. I didn't think he would have time to suspect that anything had gone wrong till Saturday morning, when he would be expecting, of course, to get the acknowledgement of the manuscript from the publishers. But early on Friday evening he came out of the library as I was passing and asked me to step in. He was looking considerably rattled. "Bertie," he said. He always spoke in a precise sort of pompous way. An exceedingly disturbing thing has happened. As you know, I dispatched the manuscript by book to Messrs. Riggs and Ballinger, the publishers, yesterday afternoon. It should have reached them by the first post this morning. Why I should have been uneasy, I cannot say, but my mind was not altogether at rest respecting the safety of the parcel. I therefore telephoned to Messrs. Riggs and Ballinger a few moments back to make inquiries. To my consternation, they informed me that they were not yet in receipt of my manuscript. "Very rum," I said. I recollect distinctly placing it myself on the hall table in good time to be taken to the village. But here is a sinister thing. I have spoken to Oakshott, who took the rest of the letters to the post office, and he cannot recall seeing it there. He is, indeed, unswerving in his assertions that when he went to the hall to collect the letters, there was no parcel among them. "Sounds funny," I said. "Bertie, shall I tell you what I suspect?" "What's that?" "The suspicion will no doubt sound to you incredible, but it alone seems to fit the facts as we know them. I incline to the belief that the parcel has been stolen." "Oh, I say, surely not." "Wait. Hear me out. Though I have said nothing to you before or to anyone else concerning the matter, the fact remains that during the past few weeks a number of objects, some valuable, others not, have disappeared in this house. The conclusion to which one is irresistibly impelled is that we have a kleptomaniac in our midst. It is the peculiarity of kleptomania, as you are no doubt aware, that the subject is unable to differentiate between the intrinsic values of objects. He will purloin an old coat as readily as a diamond ring, or a tobacco pipe costing but a few shillings, with the same eagerness as a purse of gold. The fact that this manuscript of mine could be of no possible valuable to any outside person convinces me that— "Oh, but uncle," I said, "one moment. I know all about those things that were stolen. It was Meadows, my man, who pinched them. I caught him snaffling my silk socks. Right in the act, by Jove." He was tremendously impressed. "You amaze me, Bertie. Send for the man at once and question him." "Oh, but he isn't here," I said. "You see, directly I found that he was a sock sneaker, I gave him the boot. That's why I went to London, to get a new man." "Well, then," he said, "if the man Meadows is no longer in the house, it could not have been he who purloined my manuscript. The whole thing is inexplicable." After which we brooded for a bit. Uncle Willoughby pottered about the room, registering baffledness, while I sat sucking on a cigarette, feeling rather like a chappie I'd once read about in a book, who murdered another cove and hid the body under the dining-room table, and then had to be the life and soul of a dinner party with it there all the time. My guilty secret oppressed me to such an extent that after a while I couldn't stick it any longer. I lit another cigarette and started for a stroll in the grounds by way of cooling off. It was one of those still evenings you get in the summer when you can hear a snail clear its throat a mile away. The sun was sinking over the hills and the gnats were fooling around all over the place, and everything smelled rather topping, what with the falling dew and so on, and I was just beginning to feel a little soothed by the peace of it all when suddenly I heard my voice spoken. "It's about Bertie." It was the loathsome voice of that young blighted Edwin. For a moment I couldn't locate it. Then I realized that it came from the library. My stroll had taken me within a few yards of the open window. I had often wondered how those Johnnies in books did it. I mean, the fellows with whom it was the work of a moment to do about a dozen things that ought to have taken them 10 minutes. But, as a matter of fact, it was the work of a moment with me to chuck away my cigarette, swear a bit, leap about 10 yards, dive into a bush that stood near the library window, and stand there with my ears flapping. I was as certain as I'd ever been of anything that all sorts of rotten things were in the offing. "About Bertie?" I heard Uncle Willoughby say. "About Bertie and your parcel," said Edwin. "I heard you talking to him just now. I believe he's got it." When I tell you that just as I heard these frightful words, a fairly substantial beetle of sorts dropped from the bush down the back of my neck, and I couldn't even stir to squash the same, you will understand that I felt pretty rotten. Everything seemed against me. "What do you mean, boy?" said Willoughby. "I was discussing the disappearance of my manuscript with Bertie only a moment back, and he professed himself as perplexed about the mystery as myself." "Well," said Edwin, "I was in his room yesterday afternoon doing him an act of kindness, and he came in with a parcel. I could see it, though he tried to keep it behind his back. And then he asked me to go to the smoking room and snip some cigars for him, and about 2 minutes afterwards he came down, and he wasn't carrying anything. So it must be in his room." Well, I understand they deliberately teach these dashed Boy Scouts to cultivate their powers of observation and deduction and what-not. Devilish thoughtless and considerate of them, I call it, and look at all the trouble it causes. "It sounds incredible," said Uncle Willoughby, thereby bucking me a trifle. "Oh, shall I go and look in his room?" asked the young blighted Edwin. "I'm sure the parcel's there." But what could be his motive for perpetrating this extraordinary theft? "Perhaps," said Edwin, "he's what you said just now." "A kleptomaniac? Impossible." "It might have been Bertie who took all those things from the very start," suggested the little brute hopefully. "He may be like Raffles." "Raffles?" "He's a chap in a book who went about pinching things." "I can't believe that Bertie would go about pinching things." "Well, I'm sure he's got the parcel," said Edwin. "I'll tell you what you might do. You might say that Mr. Berkeley wired that he'd left something there. He had Bertie's room, you know. You might say you wanted to look for it." That would be possible. I didn't wait to hear any more. Things were getting too hot. I sneaked softly out of my bush and raced for the front door. I sprinted up to my room and made for the drawer where I put the parcel. And then I found I hadn't the key. It wasn't for the deuce of a time that I recollected I had shifted it to my evening trousers the night before and must have forgotten to take it out again. Where the dickens were my evening things? I'd looked all over the place before I remembered that Jeeves must have taken them away to brush. To leap at the bell and ring it was, with me, the work of a moment. I just rung it when there was a footstep outside, and in came Uncle Willoughby. "Oh, Bertie," he said, without a blush, "I have received a telegram from Berkeley, who occupied this room in your absence, asking me to forward him his cigarette case, which it would appear he had inadvertently omitted to take with him when he left the house. I cannot find it downstairs, and it has therefore occurred to me that he may have left it in this room. I'll just take a look around." It was one of the most disgusting spectacles ever seen. This white-haired old man, who should have been thinking of the hereafter, standing there lying like an actor. "I haven't seen it anywhere," I said. "Oh, nevertheless," he said, I will search. I must spare no effort." "I should have seen it if it had been here, what?" "It may have escaped your notice. It is possibly in one of the drawers." He began to nose about. He pulled out drawer after drawer, pottering round like an old bloodhound, and babbling from time to time about Berkeley and his cigarette case, and in a way that struck me as perfectly ghastly. I just stood there, losing weight every moment. Then he came to the drawer where the parcel was. "This appears to be locked," he said, rattling the handle. "Oh, yes," I said, I shouldn't bother about that one. It's locked and all sort of thing." "You have not the key?" A soft, respectful voice spoke behind me. "I fancy, sir, that this must be the key you require. It was in the pocket of your evening trousers." It was Jeeves. He had shimmered in carrying my evening things and was standing there holding out the key. I could have massacred the man. "Thank you," said my uncle. "Not at all, sir." The next moment, Uncle Willoughby had opened the drawer. I shut my eyes. "No," said Uncle Willoughby, "nothing here. Drawer is empty. Thank you, Bertie. I hope I have not disturbed you. I fancy Berkeley must have taken his case with him after all." When he had gone, I shut the door carefully. Then I turned to Jeeves. The man was putting my evening things out on a chair. "Jeeves?" "Sir?" "Oh, nothing. It was deuced difficult to know how to begin." "Jeeves?" "Sir?" Have you by chance—" "I removed the parcel this morning, sir." "Oh, why?" "I considered it more prudent, sir." I mused for a while. "Of course, I suppose all this must seem tolerably rummy to you, Jeeves?" "Not at all, sir. I chanced to overhear you and Lady Florence speaking of the matter the other evening, sir." "Did you, by Jove?" "Yes, sir." "Well, Jeeves, I think that, on the whole, if you were to, as it were, freeze on to that parcel until we get back to London—" "Exactly, sir." "And then we might, so to speak, chuck it away somewhere, what?" "Precisely, sir." "Okay, well, fine. Then I'll leave it in your hands." "Entirely, sir." "You know, Jeeves, you're by way of being rather a topper." "I endeavour to give satisfaction, sir." "1 in a million, by Jove." "It is very kind of you to say so, sir." "Well, that's about it, then, I think." "Very good, sir." Florence came back on Monday. I didn't see her till we were all having tea in the hall. It wasn't till the crowd had cleared away a bit that we got a chance to have a word together. "Well, Bertie," she said. "It's all right. You have destroyed the manuscript?" "Well, not exactly, but—" "What do you mean?" "Well, I mean I haven't absolutely—" "Bertie, your manner is furtive." "Oh, it's all right. It's this way." And I was just going to explain how things stood when out of the library came leaping Uncle Willoughby, looking as braced as a 2-year-old. The old boy was a changed man. "A most remarkable thing, Bertie. I have just been speaking with Mr. Riggs on the telephone, and he tells me he received my manuscript by the first post this morning. I cannot imagine what can have caused the delay. Our postal facilities are extremely inadequate in the rural districts. I shall write to headquarters about it. It is insufferable if valuable parcels are to be delayed in this fashion. I happened to be looking at Florence's profile at the moment, and at this juncture she swung round and gave me a look that went right through me like a knife. Uncle Willoughby meandered back to the library, and there was a silence she could have dug bits out of with a spoon. "I can't understand it," I said. "I can't understand it. By Jove." "I can," she said. "I can understand it perfectly, Bertie. Your heart failed you. Rather than risk offending your uncle, you— Oh, no, absolutely. You preferred to lose me rather than risk losing the money. Perhaps you did not think I meant what I said. I meant every word. Our engagement is ended." "Oh, but I say—" "Not another word." "Oh, but Florence, old thing—" "I do not wish to hear any more. I see now that your Aunt Agatha was perfectly right. I consider that I have had a very lucky escape. There was a time when I thought that with patience you might be molded into something worthwhile. I see now that you are impossible." And she popped off, leaving me to pick up the pieces. When I had collected the debris to some extent, I went to my room and rang for Jeeves. He came in as if nothing had happened or was ever going to happen. It was the calmest thing in captivity. "Jeeves," I yelled. "Jeeves, that parcel has arrived in London." "Yes, sir." "Did you send it?" "Yes, sir. I acted for the best, sir. I think that both you and Lady Florence overestimated the danger of people being offended at being mentioned in Sir Willoughby's recollections. It has been my experience, sir, that the normal person enjoys seeing his or her name in print, irrespective of what is being done about them. I have an aunt, sir, who for a few years ago was a martyr to swollen limbs. She tried Walkinshaw's Supreme Ointment and obtained considerable relief, so much so that she sent them an unsolicited testimonial. Her pride at seeing her photograph in the daily papers in connection with descriptions of her lower limbs before taking, which were nothing less than revolting, was so intense that it led me to believe that publicity of whatever sort is what nearly everybody desires. Moreover, if you have ever studied psychology, sir, you will know that respectable old gentlemen are by no means averse to having it advertised that they were extremely wild in their youth. I have an uncle—" I cursed his aunts and his uncles and him and all the rest of the family. "Do you know that Lady Florence has broken off her engagement to me?" "Indeed, sir." "Not a bit of sympathy. I might have been telling him it was a fine day." "You're sacked." "Very good, sir." He coughed gently. "As I am no longer in your employment, sir, I can speak freely without appearing to take a liberty. In my opinion, you and Lady Florence were quite unsuitably matched. Her ladyship is of a highly determined and arbitrary temperament, quite opposed to your own. I was in Lord Worpleson's service for nearly a year, and during which time I had ample opportunities of studying her ladyship. The opinion of the servants' hall was far from favourable to her. Her ladyship's temper caused a good deal of adverse comment among us. It was at times quite impossible. You would not have been happy, sir." "Get out," I said. He continued. "I think you would also have found her educational methods a bit trying, sir. I have glanced at the book her ladyship gave you. It has been lying on your table since your arrival, and it is, in my opinion, quite unsuitable. You would not have enjoyed it, and I have it from her ladyship's own maid, who happened to overhear a conversation between her ladyship and one of the gentlemen staying here, Mr. Maxwell, who is employed in an editorial capacity by one of the reviews, that it was her intention to start you almost immediately upon Nietzsche. You would not have enjoyed Nietzsche, sir. He is fundamentally unsound." "Get out," I said. "Very good, sir." It's rummy how sleeping on a thing often makes you feel quite different about it. It's happened to me over and over again. Somehow or other, when I woke next morning, the old heart didn't feel half so broken as it had done. It was a perfectly topping day, and there was something about the way the sun came in at the window and the row the birds were kicking up on the ivy that made me half wonder whether Jeeves wasn't right. After all, though she had a wonderful profile, was it such a catch being engaged to Florence Cray as the casual observer might imagine? Wasn't there something in what Jeeves had said about her character? I began to realize that my ideal wife was something quite different, something a lot more clinging and drooping and prattling and whatnot. I think I got as far as this in thinking the thing out when that Types of Ethical Theory book caught my eye. I opened it, and I give you my honest word, this is what hit me. Of the two antithetic terms in the Greek philosophy, one only was real and self-subsisting, and the other was ideal thought, as opposed to that which it has to penetrate and mold. The other, corresponding to our nature, was in itself phenomenal, unreal, without any permanent footing, having no predicates that held true. Well, I mean to say, what? A Nietzsche, from all accounts, was a lot worse than that. Jeeves, I said when he came in with my morning tea, I've been thinking it over. You're engaged again. Thank you, sir. I sucked down a cheerful mouthful. A great respect for this bloke's judgment began to soak through me. Oh, Jeeves, I said, about that check suit? Yes, sir. Is it really a frost? A trifle too bizarre, sir, in my opinion. But lots of fellows have asked me who my tailor is. Doubtless in order to avoid him, sir. He's supposed to be one of the best men in London. I'm saying nothing against his moral character, sir. I hesitated a bit. I had a feeling that I was passing into this chappie's clutches, and that if I gave in now, I should become just like poor old Aubrey Fothergill, unable to call my soul my own. On the other hand, this was obviously a cove of rare intelligence, and it would be a comfort in a lot of ways to have him doing the thinking for me. I made up my mind. All right, Jeeves, I said, give the bally suit away to somebody. He looked down at me like a father gazing tenderly at the wayward child. Thank you, sir. I gave it to the undergardener last night. A little more tea, sir? End of episode and chapter. Well, things looked pretty bad for a while, but it turns out the good news that the manuscript was published and Bertie no longer engaged. Next episode, Bertie and Jeeves travel to New York, initially just to do a favor for his Aunt Agatha. If you subscribe to my newsletter, you'll get notified of my updates as soon as they're ready. If you enjoy this reading or have other classics you'd like to hear, leave me a comment. Check out my other posts on my Substack at ravensview.substack.com. And remember to share this with your friends. Ta-ta for now.